Far-right libertarian Javier Milei has been named the new president of Argentina. He's often compared to Donald Trump and notoriously brought chainsaws to campaign rallies, promising to cut state spending. Joining me live is Tracy Fenwick, who's a professor in Latin American politics at the Australian National University. Thank you for your time. How do you sum up this election victory? Because from afar, obviously, it's all about the economy and inflation in Argentina. We talk about our inflation, it's running at more than 100%. What's the solution, I guess, being prescribed here by the new president?
Hi, Tom. I don't really think so. Let's just first of all, the solutions put forward by Milei are quite radical, and he has compromised them between the first and second round, which is what enabled him to win, because it meant that the established opposition, the former president Mauricio Macri and Patricia Bullrich, that ran in the first round, put their support behind him, which is how he was able to have a victory. So he has compromised on some of those now infamous statements about, he's now fixing the central bank, not disbanding it and not getting rid of it. So we have seen some change in the tone, especially in his acceptance speech. But I think the main point to point out is this vote for an outsider, anti-establishment candidate in Argentina is not. Argentine voters didn't vote for his policies or for him. It's an anti-Peronist vote, and it's an anti-government protest vote. It doesn't necessarily mean that the people who voted for him endorse the policies that he's been spouting during his campaign. And
yet he's been voted for, and I guess it's the scale of the problem there in Argentina. I remember being there a few years ago, and inflation was a problem. It was running at 10 or 11%, and you had a little bit of a black market problem for the US dollar, and obviously various things have been exacerbated, including COVID. But things must be pretty dire then if you're saying people are voting for someone who's obviously pretty radical, some pretty radical solutions, just to change from the current government.
Yeah, they're embarking on a radical experiment. I don't think even people who voted for it really know what's going to happen in the next coming days. But the euphoria and excitement on the streets is Argentines are really resilient. They've been through crisis after crisis and military dictatorships. The Peronists have governed the last 28 of 40 years of democracy since they redemocratized. And things are just up and down. It's constant volatility. Argentina also has the youngest voting age, which is 16, and it's predominantly young voters who didn't live the dictatorship and don't have that memory that their grandparents and parents have that really want to change. And I think Argentines, it marks the end of Peronist populism. It doesn't mean that when we compare it to Trump and Bolsonaro, people, it's as if this is the first time populism has happened in Argentina. Populism was created in Argentina, and that's where it originally came from in theory in the 1940s. So, but that populism has always been Peronism. It's a really large state. It's very bureaucratic. And there's high levels of corruption, and Argentines, the opposition failed to produce a candidate. The established opposition. And so we have a completely outsider, anti-establishment candidate, libertarian, who's talking about the 19th century and returning Argentina back to its former glory.
Yeah, so briefly, we don't have much time, but what are the prospects? Because, as you say, he knocked off some of the more extreme elements. There's a famous picture of him just ripping departments off a whiteboard saying they'll go. It's not going to be that radical, but it's going to be different. Have you got a glass half full theory on how this might play out?
Look, I'm not going to do the pessimistic version. I don't think he's Trump, because Trump was an outside candidate within an established party, the Republican Party, with a lot of power. This candidate cannot govern without the support of Congress, and his legislative base, which he doesn't have, is established politicians and people with a lot of intelligence and technocrats. And so we're all waiting to see who he nominates in his cabinet. But I would think that his cabinet will be people who have established reputations and records. And I think Argentine institutions like the legislature is strong enough that I don't think he won't have the free reign that some of the international news is predicting.
Yeah, maybe not so much chainsaws, but some long, boring meetings, as all politicians have to endure. We will see. It's certainly going to be different given his background. Tracy Fenwick, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.